Hi, my name's Willow Brew. I'm applying for the Shuttleworth Fellowship, specifically about disaster and humanitarian response, the digital aspects of that, and how we can do them in an open way. So I've been involved with this since 2010, which is when it really started to take off in a lot of ways after the Haitian earthquake. And I'm interested in how frontline populations self-organize with tools like citizen science and open governance, the tools associated with those, but then also how they choose to interact or not with larger institutions. So in a crisis, we often are outside of our own capacities, and so we need outside help in some way. And how do we guide that in a useful way that helps us further our long-term goals, not just address the immediate needs? So this is kind of vague, so I'm going to give you three examples of things that I've worked on. The first is when I worked with digital democracy in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And we worked with a group called COVAVIV, which is Coalition of Victims for Victims it's the Creole abbreviation. So COVAVIV used to be women that would walk around and they would find people who had been victims of gender-based violence, and they would help them find the resources they needed. So there's a clinic over there, there's a lawyer over here, and here's the timeline that you need to think about, and also give them moral support. But they got so much traction, sadly, but also awesomely, that they set up a call center so that they weren't just limited by how far they could walk in a day, but they could actually have people calling them. Well, it got so much traction in that because it was 24/7 and it was free to call, which is super rare there, that more and more people were calling in, and not just with questions of assault, but also questions of, tell me about this safer sex thing, or I'm trying to navigate this relationship with this new person that I'm interested in. Tell me how to do this in a way that is consent-based. And so they were getting more and more calls that were outside of the geographic knowledge of the women. And so they had decided that what they needed was a database, a way for them to reference what clinics and doctors and lawyers were out there who could help people, but might be beyond the geographic knowledge of the women who worked there. And it was amazing because we did it on OpenStreetMap, so you could refer it in a couple of different ways because the addresses are spotty when they do exist in Port-au-Prince. And so the women were able to design their own interface, and these are people who haven't used much in the way of digital interfaces, and they were able to update the information on their own. We worked with the students of a local technical college who still maintain that. Some of them got hired into COVAVIV in order to continue maintaining the database and the code structure. So that's one example of something that I've done. Another example was, it's called Tarifa, which is to report in Swahili. And I worked on the instance that is in Tanzania, but it's also been deployed in a couple other countries, mostly in Africa. And it's how, usually if a water point breaks, no one knows, or the people who are local know, and they sometimes fix it themselves, but the Ministry of Water that you're paying taxes to doesn't actually know about it, and so they can't fix it. Or they find out about it in about a month, and then they take another year to respond to it because of their bureaucratic systems are really convoluted. So what we did is, instead of speeding up the reporting mechanism, we made it so that the calls that people were placing to their friends and to their local engineers, we made it free to call, and we made it so that the exhaust of that interaction updated the Ministry of Water database so that when and if they're able to allocate resources, they're able to do so accurately. So that's another example of something that I've done. And then I guess, so I also deployed with FEMA for the field innovation team during Sandy response. And I mostly worked with Occupy. So what does the reappropriated system of Occupy Wall Street, how they interacted with the formal sector? So what makes sense for FEMA to come and do, and what does it make sense for Office of Emergency Management to come do, and what does it make sense for them to just stay out of the way? We've got this. And so help them transition from Google Fusion tables to Sahana Eden, which is an open source logistics platform for emergency and disaster response. So those are the sorts of things that I've done. I have a lot of reasons why I do that and the things that I think about when engaging with these sorts of programs, which I will wax poetic to you about as much as you'll tolerate.